Hello Internet, this is Alex from Developer Relations at Click. This will just be a short video showing you a module we built called Architeqt. An Architeqt is a module to let you synchronize application content between different applications. So for example, as your application farm grows in your ClickSense platform, you might find yourself creating very similar applications that share a lot of the same characteristics, such as the similar data models. They might share a common set of dimensions and measures. And as soon as you need to make any kind of changes to these, you would have to go into every app essentially and make those changes. So Architeqt is a way for you to circumvent that problem. So Architeqt works with what we call blueprints. So you can define ClickSense applications as blueprints, and then you can have other ClickSense applications depend on these blueprints. And then you can sort of initiate syncs. So you can sync the content of a blueprint onto other applications. So this would allow you to have, for example, a common story that explains how to use your ClickSense deployment, and you can just tie that blueprint to all your apps. So every time you need to make a change to this story, you might switch out a slide, you might switch out some kind of imagery. You would just have to go into the blueprint, make that changes, and then just propagate those changes. And it will automatically just be synced to all the depending blueprints. So this is built using open source technologies. So if you have a maintenance and support agreement with Click, Architeqt is not covered by that agreement. However, the APIs that Architeqt uses are covered by the maintenance and support agreement. So if we would break an API or you find a bug with any of our APIs, that is of course covered by the maintenance and support agreement. So we built Architeqt in mind that it's primarily going to be used by ClickSense administrators and ClickSense developers. So perhaps not the most sort of code, people that aren't used to writing code all day long. So we built it with that in mind, so you should be able to just leverage and reuse any kind of ClickSense knowledge or ClickSense skill sets that you had from before. So most of it is managed through QMC. You build out your applications like you normally would in ClickSense, and that's about it. So Architeqt comes with support for most of the different entities that you might find in applications. We have decided not to include LoadScript at this time. That might change in the future, but for now we said that we were just going to leave LoadScript to something else. You can manage that with include files, for example, and variables. But we will sync sheets and any kind of objects that you would put on those sheets. We will sync stories and all of those slides and slide items. We will sync snapshots, variable, and everything that's included in the normal library, such as dimensions, measures, and master objects. So Architeqt is the server component, and the server component contains of a REST API that will manage all of this. We also ship a sample client that works against this REST API. You could, of course, code something on your own against this REST API, or you can use something like PowerShell or curl to initiate full syncs on a scheduled basis, for example, if you do not want to trigger them by hand. It's a Node.js module, meaning that all you would have to do for installation on the server component is that you would just copy some files into a folder on the server. We also provide some cheat codes for that, so it can go a little bit faster. And then you use the ClickSense service dispatcher to manage this module for you. And then you just set up all the different things you would need in QMC, or you can manage it through the Architeqt client. So let's look at this in action. I'm not going to show you all of the different installation steps. I would recommend you would just go to github/mindspank/architeqt and read the installations instructions if you want to get started. So from here, we can use the client, which we uploaded as a mashup into ClickSense. So the client allows you to list all of the different blueprints that we define in the system, and we also have a bunch of children that currently depends on a blueprint. So how do we define this? We work with custom properties in the QMC. So this is the ClickSense Management Console, and from here we can go and look at custom properties, and we have two different ones. We have something that's called blueprint, and that will just contain a value called true, just to sort of mark applications that is a blueprint. And then we also have a custom property called use blueprint, and this will just be a list of those blueprint IDs. The names of these properties are of course configurable if you wish to swap them out for something else. So how do we associate a children to a blueprint, for example? So in this case, I've chosen to show two more columns here, those two custom properties. So let's say we have a published app over here. So that app is published here in the everyone stream. So I can go back to QMC, and now I can go into the published app and I can show custom properties. And from here I can say that this application should depend on maybe this blueprint, and maybe it should depend on this blueprint as well. So just to show you that there's no trickery or tomfoolery going on here, I can actually open this app. So we haven't synced anything yet. We just defined that we're gonna depend on these two blueprints. So let's open this app. Right now it's a very empty app. It just contains some dummy data. There's no stories, there's no sheets, there's nothing in here right now. We can also look at the two blueprints. Maybe we can look at this one. This blueprint will just contain like a dummy story. So let's say you have a story that you want to have spread across your entire application farm. You can just create an app with some dummy data, mock up a story in this case that shows us some getting started with click, and so on and so forth. The other template we had is actually in the everyone stream, I think. Yeah, it's called generic template. And this template will contain a sheet. It will also contain a few stories. And in this sheet, there will also be some charts and also a couple of dimensions and a couple of measures. So let's go back to the Architeqt client. And from the Architeqt client, we could initiate a full sync, or we can, for example, click on a blueprint. And if we click on a blueprint, we will see all of the apps that depend on that blueprint. In this case, we have a published app. This is the one I just associated to the blueprints. We can walk through the different blueprints. We can choose to sync either single blueprints and propagate the content in that blueprint to our children, or we can look at a children. And in the children, we can say that's, grab all of the objects from all my blueprints and sync them to my app. Or we can select different blueprints here, and we can choose to purge the selected blueprints from the app. And what that will do, it will actually go into the children, it will remove any kind of synced objects from the child, and it will also disassociate that child from any blueprints that you selected in QMC. But in this case, let's just initiate a full synchronization. This might be a little bit slow, so we actually opted for, instead of fast syncing speeds, we opted for reliability. So we're syncing an app at a time, essentially. So usually this takes between a couple of seconds, depending on how many apps you have. So do calculate somewhere between 3-4 seconds per app. So that we are done. So we synced two blueprints to about 4 or 5 apps. So now if I come back to my published app here, you actually see now I have a sheet, and it's published as a base sheet. We also have a few stories. This is the story from the generic story template, and this is the stories from the generic template. And we can open it up just to show you that everything is actually here. It's just a normal sheet with normal charts, and in here we have the dimensions that we saw in our blueprints before as well, and there we go, and all the measures. And as you noticed, I didn't have to go in and sort of unpublish applications and then republish them again, meaning that it's still the same app. So users using this app can still iterate on the content here. So we will not recreate the app in any way. So all of that user-created content is still persisted within the app. So you don't have to worry about someone's own analysis going haywire or disappearing when you're doing this. We will just push content into apps, and we will never sort of take anything out that's not tagged as a blueprint. So that's about it. It's quite simple to use. You just set up the lists in QMC, and you can add blueprints here. So you manage it as normally through the QMC. Benefit of that is, of course, that you get the access control that we provide out of the box from QMC. You can upload the client as a mashup, which also then provides a layer of access control. The server component out of the box does not allow communication from any other hosts than your ClickSense server. Although it's not entirely secure, because if somebody wanted to, they could spoof that host origin. But of course, we also provide logging, so we will provide a fairly, for every request coming into the server, we will log that, so you will be able to track back anything weird happening on the system. Most of the configurations objects, the configuration options are located in the config.js file, so you can just open this up in your favorite editor after you installed it, and you can swap out any kind of properties. If you want to change the custom properties names, if you want to run on a different port, you might want to switch out the cross-origin host names. Also down here, you want to swap out the hosts, so this will match your ClickSense servers and not my ClickSense server. This is version 1, so for now you will have to swap out the host names on your own. In version 1.1, which we expect later this week, this will all be dynamic, so you wouldn't have to worry about it. And if you have the certificates at a different place. But from an out-of-the-box installation of ClickSense, you wouldn't have to change too much in here apart from the different host names. So that was a short intro to Architeqt. We will be providing more information as this week progresses and in the upcoming weeks, so stay tuned. Thank you.